But there are new potential rules in the EU that you would have to know it's an AI voice, because staying with AI, the European Union is moving closer to some form of regulation. A draft bill says any company creating so-called foundational models should be required to produce risk assessments and let people know when they're interacting with the technology. The plans still need approval from member states, and it comes as China pushes ahead with its own regulation and concerns mount that the U.S. is behind the curve. Last year, the White House published its so-called blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights, but stateside regulation on the space is still very much a work in progress.
That's right, and regulation is playing catch up, but companies, they continue to make fast moves, none more so than Microsoft, which has invested billions in OpenAI. That's the startup behind ChatGPT. As everyone jumps on the bandwagon, the tech giant isn't slowing its efforts. It announced a deal with Builder.ai, a startup that helps companies make applications without any coding experience. Joining us now is Sachin Duggal, who is the Builder.ai CEO and founder. Sachin, great to have you here with us on Yahoo Finance. First, take us into this larger AI push, what you're seeing, the demand, and how ultimately you're going to be able to monetize what you're putting together for some other companies to be able to access.
So firstly, thank you so much for having me in the morning. When we think about what's happening in the world at large, and this is, before ChatGPT and what we're seeing with OpenAI, we've seen a rapid push towards digital transformation. Whether it's a small business, it's entrepreneurs that are trying to build ideas and they need to be digitally native. And companies like ours are using AI to accelerate the productivity for them to get to that endpoint, right? So they don't have to become software experts. They can simply talk about their idea. We can recommend the right set of features depending on which region in the world they're in, what kind of features they're building. Broadly speaking, I think where you're starting to see this play out into everyday life is productivity applications. You think about things like Copilot. They're going to help us do a lot more with a lot less. And that means that if we think about the aggregate amount of demand for work that even comes into a startup like Builder, and the aggregate amount of supply we have, whether it's our expert network or it's our own teams doing internal work, this actually helps us level the playing field and brings back some balance for a lot of folks.
Sachin, how is this going to be integrated into Teams? And what else do you expect to do through this Microsoft partnership?
So the Microsoft partnership for us is quite broad stroke. It starts with a core alignment on mission and vision. And I know that many people say that, but for us, it's about together, how do we build the next 100 million digital dreams? Is that a small business? Is that an enterprise transforming? Is that an entrepreneur building new ideas? And so the partnership is multifaceted. From where do these applications live? How do they get a premium service on Azure? Another example is, imagine you're in an enterprise. You have hundreds of thousands of users that are talking about day-to-day problems that they have in their business department. Maybe you have a warehousing department. And now Natasha could be invited to Teams. Natasha is our conversational AI, could be invited to Teams. And at the end of the call could say, hey, listen, I think you need a warehouse scanner. Your other department in Japan has already built this. And you can have this in a week because it's using these Lego-like reusable features and putting them together. On the other hand, we've heard about this new role called prompt engineering. But actually, Natasha talks to ChatGPT and acts as the prompt engineer. So when she's having a conversation with a customer or she's prompting one of our sales experts as they're speaking to a customer, and she doesn't quite understand the question because she's not a large language model, she can go to ChatGPT with the full context of the conversation, the features, and then be able to decide that the answer ChatGPT is given, is it suitable for the customer or not, and then pass that answer forward.
How does Natasha get smarter? Yes.
So Natasha is based on this concept of a knowledge graph. If you think about the human mind, it's a very robust knowledge graph. And I don't mean to obviously belittle the human mind because I think it's profound. But a knowledge graph is ultimately nodes and then relationships. Think about it as the relationships between neurons in our mind. And what Natasha does over time is, as she starts to understand the relationship between customers, between features, for example, you can't log out before you log in. If you want to do payments, you need a credit card gateway. If you are a retailer, there's a high probability you need a shopping app. And then she's also able to understand what you mean. So, if you started to say, I'm a small business, I sell shoes, she might show you a shopping app with shoes in it. And then you could say, I do, high-end women's shoes. And she switches the trainers to high-end women's shoes in the pictures. And so this is the learned behavior. And the graph is really how we're able to build this software brain.
Sachin, am I always going to know I'm interacting with Natasha? And I ask that because of what we were just talking about with the new EU regulations that say it's got to be clear when you're interacting with an AI. Do you think those regulations are reasonable?
I think they're absolutely required. And so a lot of what you'll see that we do is you can effectively talk to Natasha today in one of two ways, in the future, one of three. So today you can chat to her. Very clearly you're talking to her. We over-index that. We even give her age. And then when it's a human that takes over, she'll tell you, hey, listen, I'm handing over to a colleague. There's another way you talk to Natasha, which is she powers a lot of the sales, and we call them productologists, but think of them as customer success. She's starting to power a lot of that conversation. So she's asking them the question, and then they're asking the customer. And for us, this is powerful because it means we can remove some of the variability you get in a sales process or a customer success process, yet leave the human in the middle in that process. And then as we go forward, where Natasha establishes a voice, it's going to be key for us to leave digital signatures in place so that, if a recording is ever checked, it's clearly verified that this was an AI-generated voice rather than, one that's internal from the organization.
And Sachin, finally, I don't suppose you'll tell us how much Microsoft bought Builder.ai, but I am curious if this opens the door to a bigger partnership between you two, if you're courting other big tech companies, and whether you guys are going to go public at some point in the near or distant future.
I think that's a loaded question. But
yes, it is.
But I would say, I can't tell you the amount, but Microsoft's investment in Builder, money is a small part of it. And this is why I start with a sort of joint vision around the customer. We're working with Microsoft to go to market. We're working with Microsoft to build new product and to make either side's products richer, which I think is the key here. It's not just consumption, but it's a two-way partnership. We're really collaborating and growing. And for us, the partnership is significant, not because of an equity ownership, but because we now have, effectively a big brother that can help us as we figure out our own journey between now and when we go public, and guide us through that journey, having obviously done this many, many years ago. And I'd say the second piece to this is with Microsoft, as we also start embracing more enterprise customers, we get a level of credibility because we're working together with someone that's really tested the competency and the tires.
What does that mean in terms of profitability for the company? Are you already profitable? At what point do you believe you'll be profitable? And do you think that it's profitability before IPO or IPO before profitability?
I come from the school of thought that you should be profitable before you go public, because I think the public investor has a different risk profile to a private institutional investor, whether it's RVCs or Microsoft in this case. We have always been very focused around unit economics, very focused around watching cash, very focused around burn. And so for us, profitability has been something that we've been in and out of almost on a monthly basis for the last year. Last year we were profitable, but we're also spending more in R&D. So I think it's a balance. But we're not the kind of business that's going to run away with the bank spending with no onsight of what the future revenues might look like.
Really interesting developments, partnerships that you've been able to net, and congratulations on that front. Look forward to more news to come on that. And if you ever want to decide to let us know how much Microsoft put into it, we're all ears. Sachin, great to have you here with us today. Coming back here on Yahoo Finance Live with us, Sachin Duggal, who is the Builder.ai founder and CEO. Sachin, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.